Welcome to Nightfall Narrative, where we explore the stories that unfold after the sun goes down. If you're drawn to complex human drama and stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single chapter. Finding out my wife had a secret son was the ultimate betrayal. The real shock, though, that came when he moved into our house. This is the story of how my life completely fell apart and how I'm trying to piece it back together with a stranger who is now my stepson. It's a story about a lie that spans 17 years and a truth that landed on my doorstep with a single suitcase and a world of questions I never thought I'd have to ask. The life I had so carefully built with the woman I loved just dissolved. This is the story of that wreckage and my attempt to build something, anything, that resembles a family from what's left. Before the bomb dropped, my life was simple, predictable even, but in a good way, the kind of predictability you can build a life on. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. We met in our late 20s, a couple of people who had seen enough of the world to know what we didn't want and were shocked to find what we did want in each other. I'm a structural engineer, a man who believes in foundations, in load-bearing walls, in the quiet strength of things built to last. Sarah was a landscape designer. She brought the beauty and the life that grew around the structures I designed. We were a perfect metaphor, or so I like to tell her. Our home was proof of this partnership. A modest two-story colonial on a street so quiet the loudest sound was usually a lawnmower on a Saturday morning. I'd reinforced the foundation myself, rewired the whole place, and built the deck where we'd spend our summer evenings. Sarah had turned our half-acre lot into a paradise. Wisteria climbed the trellis I'd built, and impossibly blue hydrangeas lined the walkway. Our life was right there in that house, a fortress of quiet contentment. Our days had a rhythm. I was an early riser, up at dawn with the smell of coffee filling the kitchen. Sarah would wander down a little later, hair a messy halo, and wrap her arms around me from behind while I made her tea. We didn't need a lot of words in the morning. A shared look, a soft smile, that comfortable silence felt like the girders of our marriage, solid, unseen, but holding everything up. We didn't have children. It wasn't some sad story, it was just a choice. I was always open to the idea, but Sarah was more hesitant. She loved her nieces and nephews, was amazing with them, but she'd always say she didn't have that deep-seated need to be a mother. And I loved her enough that her happiness was my happiness. Our life was full. We traveled, we had our careers, we had friends, and most importantly, we had each other. I remember one night, maybe 6 months before everything imploded. We were on the deck, a bottle of wine between us, the scent of Sarah's night-blooming jasmine hanging in the air. "You know," I said, swirling the red in my glass, "sometimes I feel like our life is one of those quiet indie films where not much happens, but it's beautiful." She smiled, that slow, genuine smile that always made my chest ache in a good way. She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "I like our quiet movie," she said. "I wouldn't change a thing." I held on to that memory. I replayed it 1,000 times in the weeks that followed, searching her face for any sign of the lie living behind her eyes. But there was nothing. Just the woman I loved, telling me she wouldn't change a thing. It was that quiet stability, the sheer, unshakable normality of it all, that made the betrayal so catastrophic. This wasn't a crack in the foundation. It was a sinkhole that swallowed the entire house. The day it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. Early April, that time of year when the weather can't make up its mind. I went to work, sat through boring meetings about zoning permits, and came home just as a cold rain began to fall. Sarah's client meeting was running late, so I had the house to myself. I'd been meaning to clear out the attic, one of those jobs you put off for years. It was a graveyard of old college textbooks and forgotten hobbies. With the rain drumming on the roof, it seemed like the perfect, mindless project. The attic was stuffy, smelling of old paper and cedar. I started in a corner filled with Sarah's things, boxes she hadn't opened since we moved in. It was mostly what you'd expect: art school portfolios, yearbooks, old clothes. Then I saw a small wooden chest. It wasn't a family heirloom, just something she might have picked up at a flea market. It wasn't locked. Curiosity got the better of me. I lifted the lid. Inside, tucked between dried flowers and old concert tickets, was a stack of photos tied with a faded blue ribbon, and under them, a folded document. My dusty fingers fumbled as I opened it. It was a birth certificate. The world slowed down. The rain faded to a dull roar in my ears. The mother's name was Sarah Elizabeth Connell, my wife's maiden name. The father's name was unknown. And the child's name was Leo Connell, born 17 years ago in a city 300 miles away she'd never even mentioned. Nausea hit me in a wave. This had to be a mistake. A cousin she was helping out, an adoption she'd never told me about. My mind raced, trying to build a logical frame around this impossible piece of paper. Then I picked up the photos. The first was a newborn, swaddled in a hospital blanket. Next, a toddler with huge, curious eyes on a swing. Then a boy of about 10, missing a front tooth, grinning as he held up a little league trophy. In every single photo, there was Sarah. A younger Sarah, yes, but it was her, holding his hand, kneeling to tie his shoe. In the last photo, the boy looked about 12, standing next to her, almost her height. He had her eyes. The same shape, the same deep brown. My breath caught in my throat. I sat down hard on the dusty floor, the birth certificate trembling in my hand. 17 years. He was 17. We'd been together for 12 of those years. This wasn't some ghost from a life before me. This was a secret she had actively kept for our entire relationship. Every solo business trip, every vague story about visiting an old college friend. It all clicked into place with a sickening clarity. I thought I was going to be sick. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked around the attic at the relics of our shared life, and it all felt fake. The house, the life inside it. It was all a movie set. And I was the star, playing the happy husband, completely oblivious to the real story happening just off camera. I just sat there as the rain pounded on the roof, holding the evidence of a life I never knew my wife had lived, and a son I never knew existed. Waiting for Sarah to get home was the longest 2 hours of my life. I came down from the attic and laid the birth certificate and photos on the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat in the dark, watching car headlights sweep across the walls, my heart leaping with a mix of dread and a desperate need for this to be over. When I heard her key in the lock, my whole body went rigid. The door opened. "Mark, you home? Gosh, it's dark in here." She flicked on the hall light and I flinched. She saw me then and her cheerful mood vanished. "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. I watched her walk into the room, her eyes finally landing on the coffee table. She froze. All the color drained from her face. She looked from the photos to my face, and I saw it all. The panic, the fear, the weight of a lie that had finally been dug up. "Mark," she whispered. "Who is he, Sarah?" My voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to someone else. She sank into the armchair opposite me. She didn't try to deny it. "His name is Leo," she said, her gaze fixed on the photos. "He's 17, I said, the words feeling like stones in my mouth. "We've been married for 12. Do the math for me, Sarah, because I'm struggling." Tears started spilling down her cheeks. "I was 19, she choked out. "The summer after my freshman year of college, it was a stupid summer fling. I was young, I was reckless, and I made a mistake." "A mistake?" The bitterness was sharp in my voice. "He's not a mistake, Sarah. He's a person you've hidden from me for our entire life." "I know," she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. My parents, you know how they are, I couldn't tell them. And the father, he was just gone, a seasonal worker. I never even got his last name." She took a shaky breath, the story tumbling out. She dropped out of school for a semester, moved to a city where no one knew her, and had the baby alone. She found a couple, friends of a friend, who couldn't have children. The arrangement was informal, a desperate solution. They would raise Leo, and she could be in his life as his aunt. A lie built on top of a lie. "Why?" The question was a raw wound. "Why didn't you tell me? When we met? When did we get married? When we talked about having our own kids?" "Because I was a coward," she said, looking at me, her face a mess of tears and regret. "At first, it was shame. I just wanted to leave that part of me behind. Then I met you. You were so good, so solid. I was terrified that if you knew, you would see me as damaged goods. You wouldn't want me." Her words just hung there. I wanted to scream that I would have understood, that we could have figured it out. But I didn't know if that was true. And now, I'd never get the chance to find out. She took that choice away from me. "So for 12, why?" "Years," I asked flatly. "Every time you went to visit your friend, you were going to see your son." She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. "His name is Leo," she repeated softly. "And his grandparents, the people raising him, his grandmother just had a stroke. His grandfather can't handle it all on his own. He called me this morning. He doesn't know what to do." A new, cold dread washed over me. I knew what was coming. I could see it in her eyes. The secret wasn't just out, it was about to walk through our front door. This story is about to take an even more complicated turn. If you're invested in this journey and want to support the channel, take a moment to hit the like button. It really helps us at Nightfall Narrative bring more of these stories to light. Now, let's get back to what happened next. The days that followed were a blur of suffocating silence. We were like ghosts in our own home. I moved into the guest room. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying our life together, looking for the cracks I'd missed. Every memory was now tainted. Our wedding day, anniversaries, those quiet nights on the deck. Was she thinking of him then? Was our whole life just a performance? Trust, the bedrock of our marriage, had been pulverized. I looked at her and saw a stranger. Who else could keep a secret this big for so long? The humiliation was profound. My identity as her husband, her partner, was gone. I was now the man whose wife had a secret son. Sarah was a wreck. She'd walk around with red-rimmed eyes, trying to bridge the gap between us with little gestures. A cup of coffee left outside my door, a favorite meal I couldn't bring myself to eat. She apologized over and over, but the words were meaningless. Sorry, couldn't fix 12 years of lies. Then came the next crisis. The calls with Leo's grandfather, George, became more desperate. His wife's condition was getting worse. The reality was stark. He couldn't be a full-time caregiver and raise a 17-year-old. The responsibility fell squarely on Sarah. One evening, she found me on the back deck, staring at the garden that now seemed to mock me. "Mark, we need to talk about Leo," she said, her voice trembling. "George can't do it anymore. He needs to know what the plan is." "What plan, Sarah? What does that have to do with me?" I said, my voice cold. "He has nowhere else to go," she pleaded. "He's my son. He's just a kid whose whole world is falling apart." "And whose fault is that?" I snapped, the anger boiling over. "This is the consequence of your choices, Sarah, not mine. A lie you told 17 years ago just came due." "I know," she cried, "and I'll live with that for the rest of my life. But he is an innocent kid in all of this. He didn't ask for any of this." She was right, and that only made me angrier. This boy, this stranger, was as much a victim as I was. "What do you want from me?" I finally asked, my voice flat with exhaustion. She took a deep breath. "I want him to come live with us." The words sucked all the oxygen out of the night. Her son, moving into my house. The idea was so monstrous I almost laughed. It was the ultimate violation. Not only did I have to live with the betrayal, but now she wanted to install a living, breathing monument to it down the hall. My quiet life wasn't just over, it was being rewritten into a drama I never auditioned for. The wreckage was about to have a name and a face, and it was coming to live in my house. The week before Leo's arrival was the most surreal of my life. Saying no would have meant turning a kid out onto the street. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't do that, so I agreed with a heavy, resentful heart. Sarah took my numb silence as a yes. She spent the week preparing the guest room, my room for him. She packed my things into boxes and stacked them in the garage, a perfect symbol of my displacement. She painted the walls, bought a new desk, and hung posters of bands I'd never heard of. I watched her, a whirlwind of the maternal energy she claimed she never had, and felt a fresh wave of betrayal. The day he arrived, the air was thick with tension. I stood at the living room window and watched a beat-up sedan pull into our driveway. A weary-looking man in his late 60s, George, got out. Then the passenger door opened. And there he was, Leo. He was tall and lanky, with a mop of dark hair. He wore a hoodie and ripped jeans. He got out of the car and just looked at our house, his expression impossible to read. He looked nothing like me, but the resemblance to Sarah was startling. Same jawline, same posture, same deep brown eyes, which were currently filled with a mix of defiance and fear. He was the ghost from the attic, made real. Sarah rushed outside, but he sidestepped her attempt at a hug, giving an awkward nod instead. My heart, against all logic, went out to him. This had to be just as terrifying for him as it was for me. George was brief. He shook my hand, his eyes full of sorrow. "Thank you," he said, the words carrying the weight of 17 years. He helped Leo pull a large suitcase and a guitar case from the trunk, gave the boy a quick pat on the back, and then drove away. And then there were 3 of us, standing in the driveway, my wife, her secret son, and I. The first few hours were excruciating. Sarah showed him to his room. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to be busy, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Pack a bag, get in the car, and just drive. File for divorce, sell the house, and erase this entire chapter. But then I looked up, and Leo was standing in the kitchen doorway, looking completely lost. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a symbol. He was a kid. A scared kid whose mother had lied to him, whose grandmother was sick, and who'd just been forced to move in with a man who clearly hated his guts. In that moment, something shifted. It wasn't forgiveness or acceptance. It was a flicker of empathy. The next thing I did wasn't some grand gesture of revenge or a dramatic walkout. It was something that shocked everyone, myself included. "Are you hungry?" I asked. The sound of my own voice surprised me. Leo looked up startled. He shrugged. "I guess." "I was about to make some burgers on the grill," I said, not looking at Sarah, who was hovering in the hall, watching with wide, tear-filled eyes. "You like burgers?" He nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. It was such a small thing, a stupid question about burgers, but it was a step away from the edge I was ready to jump off of. It was the moment I decided not to run. I didn't know if we could ever be a family, or if Sarah and I could even survive this. But I knew walking away from this kid wasn't the answer. My decision to stay, to offer that one tiny olive branch in the form of a hamburger, that was the first terrifying step into building something new from the ruins of my old life. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in navigating a minefield. Our home, once a sanctuary, became a tense, silent theater. Dinners were the worst. The three of us would sit at the table I'd built, and the silence was so heavy you could feel it. Sarah would try to fill it with desperate, cheerful chatter. Leo would respond in monosyllables, pushing food around his plate. I would just eat, counting the seconds until I could escape. My relationship with Sarah was in tatters. We were like roommates after a terrible falling out. We'd have these circular arguments late at night, in hushed tones so Leo wouldn't hear. She'd apologize. I'd say I couldn't just forget 12 years of lies, and we'd end up back where we started. Forgiveness felt like a foreign country I didn't have a visa for. My feelings toward Leo were a mess. On one hand, every time I looked at him, he was a living reminder of Sarah's betrayal. A part of me resented him for just being there. But then there were moments. I'd see him sitting alone in his room, softly strumming his guitar, and I wouldn't see a symbol of deceit. I'd see a lonely kid trying to cope. One afternoon, I was in the garage, getting more and more frustrated with my lawnmower engine. I was about to throw a wrench when Leo appeared. "You're flooding the carburetor," he said quietly. I turned annoyed. "What do you know about it?" "My grandpa, George, he taught me a bit about small engines," he said. "You just need to adjust the fuel-air mixture." He walked over and pointed to a small screw. "Try turning that a quarter turn clockwise." Skeptical, but at my wit's end, I did it. I pulled the cord, and the engine roared to life. I looked at him, stunned. He just gave a small shrug and started to walk away. "Hey," I called out. He stopped. "Thanks." He gave me a quick nod and disappeared. It was the first real conversation we'd had. A single brick was laid in the foundation of something, though I still didn't know what. Slowly, more moments like that started to happen. We discovered a shared love for old action movies. We'd end up on the couch on a Friday night, watching Bruce Willis after Sarah had gone to bed. We wouldn't talk much, but it was a comfortable silence, a shared experience that didn't involve the history hanging between us. Rebuilding trust with Sarah was much harder. We started going to therapy. Those sessions were brutal. It was the only place where the raw, unfiltered truth was spoken. I laid out all my anger and hurt. Sarah spoke of her deep-seated shame, of the lie that grew into a monster she couldn't control. There was no magical breakthrough, just a painful, slow process. But for the first time, we were being honest. I began to understand, not excuse, but understand. The terrified 19-year-old girl who made a choice that would haunt her. The drama was no longer just about the secret. It was about the daily effort of forging a new reality. It was navigating parent-teacher conferences for a S. On Who Wasn't Mine. It was the sting I felt when Sarah would share an inside joke with Leo that I wasn't a part of. It was the slow, almost imperceptible shift from seeing him as her son to sometimes, just sometimes, thinking of him as the kid who lives here. It was a messy, difficult attempt to build a family, not from a clean slate, but from the wreckage. This journey is far from over. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. If you've ever faced a betrayal that changed your life, or had to make an impossible choice, I'd be interested to hear your story in the comments. Your perspective means a lot here at Nightfall Narrative. And if you want to follow our story, please consider liking and subscribing. It's been 8 months since Leo moved in. Our house is no longer a silent war zone, but it's not the peaceful sanctuary it was. It's something new, something complicated. My relationship with Sarah is a work in progress. Some days feel almost normal. Other days, the shadow of the lie is right back between us. The trust is fragile, like a bone that's been badly broken and might never be as strong. My relationship with Leo is also a work in progress. He's not just her son anymore, he's Leo. The kid who helps me in the garage, beats me at every video game, and who occasionally smiles a genuine smile that looks exactly like his mother's. I'm not his father. I never will be, but I am something, an ally, a roommate, maybe on a good day, a friend. There's no happily ever after to this story. There's just the ongoing reality of taking it one day at a time. I don't know if our marriage will survive or what our strange, cobbled-together family will look like in a year. All I know is that I chose to stay. I chose to face the wreckage. And in the middle of all this pain, we are slowly, painstakingly trying to build something new. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I have. And for now, that has to be enough.